us in spirit, and they are going to be with us as you farewell, as we bid farewell with you. First of all, I wanted to really appreciate UNICEF for being with us in the country, and more specifically Garissa County. UNICEF has been a very good partner, and recently as an assembly we have had a collaborative agreement, and I'm just carrying it here with me, and we have signed an agreement with UNICEF in the Garissa County Assembly just some 6 months ago, and that was on 3rd October 2018. Some of the issues that we're planning to cover is issues to do with capacity building, and also promoting responsive budgeting. And one of the things that has happened so far is through the CEC water, we have one of the issues that some of the bottlenecks that we had includes some bills and legislative framework that we're supposed to pass. And what we have done so far is, through the leadership of the CEC water, we've passed water bill, Water Management Act, and right now it is enacted, and it's one of the areas that were actually in the pipeline for us to do it under the collaborative agreement. So the CEC and the Department of Water have reduced the burden.
I think without further ado, I would like to first of all thank UNICEF Country Rep for providing their much needed leadership for the last 3 years to UNICEF. Apparently UNICEF, in my view, UNICEF is actually an institutional donor to Garissa County, because I think if you've been working for with humanitarian and development organizations for the last few years, you must appreciate that there are institutional donors that you rely on them, that every year you will get funding. At least we knew, or rather from where I sit, at least I know UNICEF support is guaranteed in the Department of Education, Health and Water. So for the last few years, I think your support was mainly on health and on education. But at least I want to confirm under your leadership for the last 1.5 years that you've given a lot of support to WASH, and it is through your support that we have a very active WASH cluster forum in Garissa today. This cluster forum has been very instrumental in improving our portfolio in the region, and it is actually housing more than 10 partners as we speak, 10 active partners. Apart from that, it is also through your support that, as Mheshimiwa Dadab has mentioned, that we have 8 boreholes that are currently operational. These boreholes are very strategic, and they are along livestock migration routes, and actually they are coming very handy in supporting the pastoral communities at a time like this, especially during the drought. So we thank you for that, because you provided 8 Parkins gensets, 20 and 30 kVA, to these pastoral communities, some of them in far-flung areas along the border, like Hammi, for instance. So we appreciate that. It's also through your support that we have a borehole in Kasha today that is working, operational. Actually, the funds we got from you was basically only 2.6 million. Out of that 2.6 million, we have a operational borehole in Kasha, and I think the chief WASH advisor was there. So it's because of that support. The money might seem small, little, but apparently we have a borehole that is currently supporting more than 1,000 households in Kasha.
As the Department of Health, of course, we've been partnering, and we are the biggest beneficiary of the partnership that the Garissa County government has with UNICEF. We've worked with UNICEF in a number of activities, and I'll take this opportunity to thank you so much, particularly Dr. Werner and your team, for the leadership that you have shown, for your passion, for your commitment. Because as we are seated here, most of us must have seen the slides here, and you realize that for the duration that he has been in the Kenya program, that is 3 years, Dr. Werner has visited this region for so many times. That alone is a clear testimony. There's no better testimony than that of the kind of passion, the kind of commitment that the leadership of Dr. Werner had, particularly investing in all activities and all areas that UNICEF work on, but in particularly the health department. Just recently, the Garissa Health Department has won a national award. It was in regards to the Rapid Results Initiative on Presidential Rapid Result Initiatives on Immunization. We attended with Dr. Werner in the meeting in Nairobi, and the organizers had very kind word for us, but we could not achieve that without the support that we got from UNICEF. It was a continued support, but particularly on that program, actually on the day of the launch and throughout, we had the support that we could not explain in a few words here. Thank you so much. You do, your office or UNICEF supports us in a number of areas. Like right now, we are working on achieving Garissa as an open defecation-free county. And you have made an immense contribution, both in terms of expertise and in terms of funds. And we had also a rapid result initiative on that. The 100 days have ended just towards the end of March, I think on the 30th of March, and we made remarkable achievements on that. You do also support us on the areas of nutrition, and you know, you cannot surmise all the areas that you support us on. With the kind of support that you are getting, and it's not only just support, but that kind of support that comes from the heart, that kind of support that has that sense of humanity, practical sense of humanity in it, and passion from the entire team. And I think this is something that actually goes in the ideals and the values of the entire team, because I mean, you meet someone in UNICEF coming from the regional office, I mean, from Nairobi office or from the zonal office here, and you realize that there is something that is a common denominator. And that common denominator is that sense of passion and commitment and humanity. And even if that is actually written in paper, it cannot be achieved without the leadership that is there in place. Having interacted with Dr. Werner, having interacted with other staff members, including Patricia of U-Time, including Patricia Giovanni, who is the deputy also. I mean, I've realized that, including Aaron, who is the head of actually the head of health, and also the head of the chief of WASH, who's here with us. I mean, I've realized that you've really set the bar too high for your successor. And that will simply mean that we expect much more. There are so many areas that, of course, we do expect support from. For us, where we sit, we do envision a government, a county government, where we do not actually rely on much support from the partners. We are very much independent, but that can only be achieved when we reach solutions to the issues which are there, permanent solutions to the issues which are there. Of course, nobody or no society or no government, no institution would want to be dependent forever. And we can only achieve that through the kind of partnership that we are having, through the that kind of consultations that we are having. Thank you so much for also supporting us in developing our strategic plan, the strategic plan of Garissa County Health Department. I was covered in 2013 to 2018. The one for 2018 to 2022 is just in the latest stage of being developed. There was slight delay, but a big support for that program came from UNICEF, and you know, being with us actually, not only supporting, but being with us, and even your staff being with us and guiding us, and you know, giving us the expert opinion, particularly Dr. Abagira and his team and Bibi. I mean, that actually means a lot to us. It goes further than any person may comprehend and may envision, and we really thank you for this. There is a few bills that we are working on, as has just been mentioned by the Deputy Speaker, and we are getting support also from the UNICEF team. Our message to you is, you know, in the Somali saying, say that there was this young man who was being raised by his stepmom, and he would tell his dad whenever he's leaving that, Daddy, tell my mom something small that may not be of might not be a burden to you, but it will be of big relief and a big support to me. And that is, take care of the kid, you know. So what he will tell you is that as you hand over to your successor, kindly have Garissa in your heart. I know you represent you represent the entire Kenya. Mention Garissa in a very special way. Because particularly we take pride in the fact that we do not let down our partners. We'll always abide by the terms which are there. We go out of our way. We meet our part of the bargain, despite the fact that we are in government, and the government is always, they always bureaucrats and all that. That's what people say. But that, I think, has not been there in the Garissa County government, particularly in the current administration that is there. We haven't let down. We met our part of the bargain. We will actually upscale our commitment towards meeting the common objectives that we have with each other. Ours is to call upon you. As you leave the office, kindly have those kind words for us. As the Department of Health, and I have raised this on many other occasions, particularly with your staff, we are committed to coming up with some kind of a strategy that will be very unique in its own way, and it will be the first one of its kind in the entire nation, which will be much inclined in terms of preventative. I am very sure you know that currently at the national level, there is the primary healthcare strategy that is coming up. But we are trying to come up with some kind of a strategy that, of course, will be along the primary healthcare, but which will be very much wider and will consider the context of Garissa. Why? Because in simple terms, we want people to be active players of their health so that we take the burden of the hospitals. And as a team, our reasoning in the Department of Health has been that constructing hospitals and expanding hospitals is just a way of saying we are getting ready for diseases, and then we abdicate our roles of preventing the diseases and preventing the diseases from not happening in the first place. So much percentage, I think it should be more than 70% or so of the diseases that are here, or even more, I'm very sure, are preventable. And this is our work to ensure that these diseases do not happen in the first place. So there's so much stride that we are making towards that, something very beautiful that we are working on, and this is one area that we will call on support. And I'm very sure it will touch on all areas, be it nutrition, be it on child health. It will touch on all areas, and it will surpass the whole agenda of the primary healthcare. This is where we will need a lot of support. What we envision is a community that is empowered in terms of the health education that we have, in terms of activeness in taking care of our health, a community that is not ignorant of the importance of immunization, but will rather be at the forefront in campaigning for immunization, and a community that has less and less preventable diseases. And that is why the whole agenda of ODF now is at advanced stage. In the past 3 months alone, I think we have achieved over 170 villages that are waiting to be actually certified and awaiting celebrations to be ODF. We have 750 villages in Garissa. We celebrated the first village to be ODF in the entire Northeastern Province region just recently, and that was Bulamaka. Number 2, we had the Ture village in Balich. We were with the UNICEF team. And this actually goes as part of our broader goals of achieving a community that is healthy and productive. Have those kind words for us. Finally, receive greetings from His Excellency the Governor. He will very much wanted to be with us here tonight, but he is out of the country, and I'm very sure you will meet him and sit with him once again. You had previous meetings and discuss matters of mutual interest. With those few remarks, or are they very many? Thank you very much. Once again, it was actually a great pleasure knowing you, working with you, and wherever you sit with your influence, with your wisdom, I'm very sure you will be with us, if not physically, but spiritually, and you'll always have us on mind. Patrick, too, thank you very much. But I'm very sure you'll still be interacting more and developing the humanitarian agenda further and higher. Thank you very much. With those few remarks, I would want us to have a very brief session of entertainment again. To changamuka kidogo. The speeches are normally boring, sindio? To changamuka kidogo before we invite our guests. Karibuni, Sodowa.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, I'm really extremely overwhelmed by all the kind words, by the fantastic evening, and by the reception, and all the people who have turned up. It's yeah, it's really heartwarming. So thank you very much for that. You know, we are, and I am really proud of the partnership we have with the county government in all the different forms, including, of course, the county assembly. We're also very proud of the wide range of partners we have on the ground here and with whom we collaborate on a daily basis to do the work which hopefully leads to good results, and I think that's indeed very much the case. You know, when you mentioned about don't forget Garissa, you know, if I think about Garissa, it is maybe not so much about the work we have done with you, in a sense that thinking of certain results or certain projects. But over the past 3 years, which a few things which I have found really outstanding, and also when I travel to other parts in Kenya where I've always had Garissa in my mind, are a few things. First of all, one of the first visits I made, or the first visit to counties when I came here 3 years ago, was to Garissa. And one of the first visits was to the primary school here in Garissa. And what I saw there, how at the school here, children with learning disabilities are integrated in the normal school. And you have a peer system where children who are either deaf, have difficulty seeing, are being helped by their peers who do not have that disability, but that they are integrated in the normal school system. And that, to me, coming from Europe, or having lived a long time in the United States also, was something which I had never ever seen. And I found that so good and so, how do you say it, inclusive, that I still remember that first visit 3 years ago, and I take it as an example of, you know, what can be done even when the means are not huge, to be inclusive, to take care of your brother, your sister, in a way which is, yeah, heartwarming. So, and I think this is one of the first things I always think about when I think about Garissa. The other thing is indeed the example you mentioned on child protection. The fact that Garissa has a special unit to prevent that children who, through maybe even no fault of their own, would end up spending a one night or several nights in a police cell, now don't need to do that. And when I was here together with the Swedish ambassador, we visited that center, and I remember there was a mother who got picked up by the police when she tried to cross the border from Somalia into Kenya, and then tried to travel onwards to Nairobi, and she was picked up, and she had 2 small kids. And if that unit would not have been there, the mother with the 2 kids would have spent the night in jail. Now she could spend it in this child protection unit, in a good environment with a clean bed and a playground for the kids. And I think that is one of the outstanding examples which Garissa has and which it can teach to many other counties in the country. Also thinking about Garissa, you have, I think, one of the best organized ambulance communication centers in Kenya. Knowing that people come to the hospital in Garissa town from far beyond Garissa's borders, and that you have this radio system which assists in transport and which coordinates with service provision, I think is something which I still think is something which is desperately lacking in so many other places. And I think it's the willingness of your department, of your ministry, of your government, who made those things possible. And I think that is fantastic. I also echo the words of Patrick, that looking at the floods, looking at the cholera outbreaks, and even last year with the floods, when you had people from Tana River coming and staying in Garissa town, they are cared for, there are places where they can go, and especially with the cholera outbreak, the quality of service you have provided for people from outside the county, I think was outstanding, especially since we also visited some other cholera treatment places where we really thought, oh my gosh, this is really not good. So I think the way you have organized things and the way you look at and make it possible for others to come and use your services, I think is another thing. When I think of Garissa, I think, okay, this is the way it should be and the way you've actually done things. Finally, what struck me when a whole series of ambassadors were here, it was a trip organized by our resident coordinator, and it was a city hopping tour with an airplane, and one of the landings which was made was here, and the governor was here to receive everybody. And what struck me when the governor was speaking, it was about the difficulties in managing a county such as Garissa because of the potential drought and what to do about it. I think that in Garissa, the thinking in terms of resilience creation is so incredibly present in the thinking of the government, and first and foremost in the mind of the governor. He used the words, it's not a question of if there will be a drought. He says it's a question of when there will be a drought, and it's sure that it will happen in a time span of the next 3 years. And one of my regrets is indeed that we were not able to bring even more resources to your county than we have had, and especially in the area of water, because I recognize that water is a commodity which is, I think, becoming more and more important, especially in the ASAL counties, and especially taking the pastoralist population into consideration. But I think that the way Garissa looks at resilience, the way Garissa looks at preparation and prevention, I think is outstanding. And I think we have not seen in Garissa the dire need in terms of water shortage and water availability as we've seen in other counties in the north, for example, and I applaud you for that. Finally, and this is a bit about our joint work, I think the groundbreaking collaboration with the County Assembly and the enthusiasm and interest of the members of the Assembly, and especially you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We met the first time in Malindi, and Mohammed introduced us, and we had a really good discussion, and about, I think, 2 months later, or 1.5 months later, we had the meeting here in the Assembly, and I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that there are so many bills in preparation, and some on the essential thing of water already passed, and I think that is truly fantastic. So those are the things. I think that with such capable leaders and with the vision you all collectively have, I've no doubt that Garissa will continue to develop rapidly. in spite of all the formidable challenges you face. Not in the least the drought and the fact that, you know, many things still need to be addressed. But devolution, I think, is and will continue to be an incredible blessing for the county. I also think that the central government will continue to be forced to pay more attention about the disparities between, let's say, the ASAL counties and some of the other parts of Kenya. So I think that the continued development in Garissa will be remarkable, and we are very proud to be here together with you. We're very proud that we've been here already for quite some time, and I'm convinced that my dear colleagues, my brothers and sisters who will stay here, will continue to work closely with you, and if they don't meet your expectations, just write me an email.
Buenas CCs, honorable member of the County Assembly, directors and colleagues, good evening. So, thank you for the wonderful reception, and I think all in all, maybe I want to say a little story, because I was blessed to arrive in Kenya actually nearly 10 years ago. And I think I was blessed to arrive in Kenya in a quite important time where so much change happened. As you would remember, when I arrived end 2008, I mean, the country just went through the terrible election violence, and the country was kind of getting up again from this time. And then 2009 arrived. There's drought, then there's flood, and then 2010 there's a Horn of Africa drought, and it seems like the country has continued to go from one emergency to another. At least as I'm engaged in the humanitarian work, this is what I've seen really. But somehow when I say I'm blessed that I've arrived in Kenya at that time, it's for a couple of things. First, maybe when I came, I was not with UNICEF. And it's my time being in Kenya. I came with OCHA, but I was able to join this fantastic team of UNICEF. And Chief and colleagues, really, it's an honor to be with this organization. Something I had in my mind for many years, even though I've worked with the UN for many years before, UNICEF was the one I think could really make a difference, and I really wanted to join that team. So that's why I'm blessed. The second one is because Kenya went through so many things over these years. And, you know, 2009, 2010, when I came and I visited Dadaab, Garissa, Wajir, this region already with OCHA. And this was the time when we were crossing the bridge in Garissa and going back to Nairobi. People were telling us, welcome in Kenya. And today it's not the same anymore. Nobody tells me that anymore. And this is for me something really big, because I think when I arrive in the other sense, in the other direction, people say, welcome in Garissa. There's a proudness, you know, Garissa part of Kenya. And this is something huge. So I'm blessed. I'm blessed of having been here, having worked now 4 years with UNICEF and 4 years with the team of the Garissa County. The Garissa County that maybe 6-7 years was not there because we've lived through devolution, and this is another blessing, I would say. It's quite amazing the change over the last 10 years. What I've seen, I would go to a hospital in Garissa, in Wajir, to some schools, to some places, and now working with UNICEF, working with the county team, working with the population here, there's this sense of ownership, this sense that makes it that, you know, our destiny is in our hands. And this is really what makes a difference as UNICEF when we work with you, is that we work with a team who is really looking for the future of their county. So thank you for the welcome. It's something really special. And I'll finish maybe because as I talked of emergencies, you know, that's my thing. Now my name is Wasame? Wasame. So I hope there's a lot of many good news that can be brought with me wherever I go. But, you know, the big difference, I would just give one example. In 2004, I think, we spent Christmas in Dadaab. There was cholera at that time. And we spent Christmas there, and it was a bit of mayhem, and the cases in Dadaab, in Garissa town, I mean, it was everywhere. And when I compare that with last year when the floods were there, and then some cholera came back again, we were here in Garissa at the hospital. And actually, Garissa was hosting and welcoming the people suffering from Tana River and from the neighbor county, actually providing extra supports. And, you know, we were here as UNICEF to provide a little bit more, but really the emergency response was really in the hand of the county team. So this is part of the blessing and the fantastic change I see. So really fantastic. I'll be in the regional office. So I'll still be blessed to be in Kenya and continue to be with you. And I hope I'll be able then to come and visit this county for some more leisures and relaxation. So thank you very much and good evening, everybody.